right here. Bam.
Great. We are live, and as I already told, perfectly prepared today. Everything about TMDL. TMDL,
Indeed.
yeah, was quite new. About it must be 6 weeks ago. Yeah, things happened in between, like the Power BI cruise and other events.
Indeed.
You have
Yes.
been there.
I was thinking, when was the last time we were online, right? And
Yeah,
it
it
turns
was
out
end
it
of
was actually
March.
quite a while ago in terms of what's happened in the meantime.
Yeah.
So quite a lot of things to catch up on, but it's all good stuff, all very enjoyable, and it's all TMDL.
Yeah.
Hopefully, everyone caught up how to pronounce TMDL as TMDL.
Now TMDL is official. It's still preview, but it's
Yeah,
official in Microsoft documentations and all this stuff. And as I see, you have here some useful links for us, and
yes,
you can present. I will, if I have
awesome.
some urgent questions, I will ask in between, but I
Yeah,
let you
by all means, absolutely.
I'll let you show it.
I would even have put on a TMDL T-shirt, which Mark from the Netherlands very kindly donated to me. But I had a really annoying shoulder injury last week. I physically can't put on T-shirts right now. So maybe next time. But there we go. I can use my mouse, so that's all that matters right now. So last time we talked, TMDL was sort of semi-announced, right? We had done SQL Bits. You and I spoke, I think, just a week after SQL Bits. I think the SQL Bits recording was already available on YouTube back then. They were super fast making that one live, but we didn't really have anything else. And that's changed quite a bit, right? So TMDL was officially released by Microsoft. There's documentation, there are various tools supporting it, and there's a little blog post as well. So quite a few things to catch up on. I put some links together here. So this one is the blog post. Sorry, it's just on the wrong window now. Here we go. Which Rui very kindly put together on April 11. I think that was just after Easter for us, giving a little overview and some links. So we've got that. I'm sure people have seen that by now. I created this very handy shortcut, which gets you, if you want to bookmark that, it gets you here. So that's the official TMDL documentation. So that's basically part of analysis service documentation in the developer section. We've already had the Tom and the TMDL documentation, and now TMDL was added. At this point, there are just 2 pages, but still, there's quite a bit here already with examples and the APIs explained, and most importantly, the folder structure as well. And obviously, more things are coming here. And then we have nuggets. So that's actually how TMDL ships, right? So let me just go to this link and explain what this is. So this is nugget.org. That's basically the standard library registry for the .NET ecosystem. That's where you find libraries to reference in your own applications or scripts. And this one, NuGet Analysis Services, happens to be the identity under which all analysis services libraries are published. There used to be 4, which are the ones we can see here. So ADO-MD client, that's what you use in order to run DAX queries against the model. And this one down here, which is just Microsoft Analysis Services. you use that one to basically manage and deploy models, right? And if you scroll down, there are actually 2 more now. So there are now 6. And TMDL comes as its own dedicated NuGet library. You can see it's a bit of a mouthful in terms of the name here, but most importantly, the version number has a suffix which basically marks it as a preview. And that suffix will disappear once we go into GA, which will happen at the end of the year. You can see this one has had over 140 downloads already, and it was published April 10th, which I think was Easter Monday, if I remember correctly. So if you're a developer, this is what you do in order to fetch it. And there are 2 different flavors of it. Net Core is for .NET Core, and then this one, which doesn't specify a framework, is for classic .NET framework. And if you reference any of those, it will automatically pull the existing libraries because they are declared as a dependency. So we've got that, and that's basically where any further updates will happen, right? So if you look at versions right now, there's only 1 version for now. There will be a few more. In fact, almost certainly within the next week, like really just days away from today, a new version will come out with quite a few really important bug fixes. And yeah, that'll be announced here. So we've got that. And then really excited, Daniel, who I probably mentioned before, right, was heavily involved in sort of making TMDL a thing from the beginning. He was super fast integrating TMDL into Tabular Editor 2 for now. And if you basically download the latest version 2.18.1, which was released 3 weeks ago, April 13, so you see exact same week, that one has TMDL support. I'm going to show in a minute what that looks like. And well, in fact, why don't I show now? So if I open Tabular Editor 2, there we go. Should come up in a second. So you can see this is 2.18.1, so that's the latest version. If I then open a BIM file containing a database, for instance, this one, right? So I've got a Contoso model in here with everything, relationships, parameters, tables, whatnot, right? I can go to Save to Folder in order to export things as TMDL. Now, Save to Folder is not a new option in Tabular Editor. Save to Folder, in fact, is something Tabular Editor invented. So what you need to do is to choose between the legacy, Tabular Editor only format and the new TMDL format. And you do that by going to Preferences and Serialization. And then in here, you can see this drop-down basically determines whether you get the classic JSON-based format or whether you get TMDL, which is preview. If you select TMDL, it's going to give you a little warning saying that it's preview and some things aren't quite working 100%. But if you're okay and confirm and leave that here, and then basically go, no, not open, but save to folder. Let me just create a subfolder called TE. Here we go. And then export. Well, nothing happens, but if I go and open this in VS Code, for instance, we'll see that, just going to make it a little bigger. Here we go. So my new TE folder is here, right? And we can see that's the standard TMDL output. There's always a model.tmdl, which defines model, annotations, query groups. Is there anything else in here? No, I think that's it. And then we've got our various model tables in individual files, right? So that's how simple it is in terms of using Tabular Editor. And it goes the other way as well, right? So, so for instance, I could, what could I? So I could give my model a description, right? Remember, TMDL invented a new description syntax, which uses triple / on top of an object declaration. So I could say this is my model, just being really lame here. And then I could go and say open from folder, right? So that's the equivalent. I've got this folder selected already. So now it's going the reverse. Now it's basically using the TMDL deserializer. And if I go to model and look at description, I can see what I just typed into my TMDL file now shows up in Tabular Editor. So this is how you can go back and forth. Cool. So that's Tabular Editor. And just going back here. Yeah, so that's what I had with respect to what was announced. TMDL specific, again, I already mentioned a new preview with quite a bit of important bug fixes is done and basically just waiting to go out. I'm expecting that within a week from today. Yeah, next thing would be to look at PBI tools, but I'm more than happy to take a little break here if you want to have a chat or if you've got any questions.
Yeah, we have one question from Donald, but it's not really on about Tabular Editor, but about the promised extension for VS Code. And I think if anyone would knew it, you definitely would be the one. I don't have found it yesterday.
Right.
Just looked it up.
There's a very strong commitment to have this out in June.
Okay, great.
I can, we just had a meeting about that and everyone was absolutely determined to get there.
Hey, it's always very hard to ask you about what's next.
Yeah.
So
there's a really good reason why June, which I can't talk about here, but but that's why I'm quite confident actually.
yeah.
So hopefully that helps. But as you can see, I'm already using sort of an early build of that extension, right? Which is basically why we can see some nice color coding here, and also why down here it's actually saying tabular model definition language for language mode. So that's my own private build. If you happened, or if you had been to Power BI Cruise last week, you would actually have received this, right? So that was a special benefit for everyone coming to my TMDL deep dive session on Power BI Cruise. They all received a private build of the extension, but let's wait till we're fully ready. We're just talking weeks from now, if that's okay.
Yeah, I would also think that there is a reason to talk again with you. It's always a pleasure.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. So June will definitely be an interesting month for us to have another chat.
nice.
All right. So we've also had a new release of PBI tools since we last spoke, the RC3 release. Just wanted to talk about that a little bit. So that's basically the first release which bundled TMDL, which is also why I labeled it the TMDL Preview 1 release. And there are basically 3 features in here. I can only really talk about TMDL today because everything else would basically be like a whole talk on its own. But let me just talk you through how PBI Tools supports TMDL now, right? So I've already got this project open, right? And if we look into PBR Tools Extract, let's start with that one. So remember, PBR Tools Extract is what you use in order to basically unzip a PBX file and sort of break things down into files and folders. If you just type PBR Tools with the command and nothing else, it gives you documentation, right? Just as a reminder. So one thing that I want to point out is this bit here. So basically, an optional argument for PBR Tools Extract is model serialization, and that one has 4 different options you can choose from: default, raw, legacy, and TMDL. And basically, those 2, legacy and TMDL, those are new. Previously, we only had default and raw. Legacy is basically what PBR Tools used to do before TMDL came along, which, just like what tabular editors used to do, sort of was a proprietary format that only existed for PBR Tools users, right? So that's still there, and it's called legacy. You can explicitly specify TMDL, and TMDL happens to be the default format. So if you don't specify anything out of the box, you get TMDL today. And that's quite important to understand, because you may not want that, right? You may have existing projects, and you don't suddenly want the outputs from those projects to change unexpectedly, without you actually managing the transition to TMDL. Or you may want to wait till a later preview, because, as I mentioned, there are still bug fixes happening right now. So you may want to wait till, let's say, the 2nd or the 3rd preview of TMDL, right? So in that case, you would want to lock things back to legacy. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit in terms of explaining. If I use the PBR Tools convert command as a proxy here, because I don't have a PBX file right now, but convert basically does exactly the same thing. Let me take this Contoso file, and let me do PBR Tools convert, and then contoso.bim, and let's extract that into a new folder called TMDL, right? So I'm not specifying anything at all. I'm not specifying model serialization, but what I'm getting, as you can see, is TMDL, right? So this whole folder structure was generated by me reading the BIM file, converting it, and serializing it into TMDL. If I instead set dash model serialization legacy, if I did that, I would get a new legacy folder, and as you can see, that one has a database.json file, and it actually uses the proprietary PBR Tools format, right? However, there's another way to get there, and that might be quite useful for people who've already invested into PBR Tools. You can set an environment variable, and that one is called PBR Tools underscore default. There we go. So you can set an environment variable default model serialization, and then specify any of the 4 values I explained earlier. So for instance, if you set default model serialization equals legacy, then that one will be effective whenever you don't specify anything else, right? So if I now go and extract this into legacy 2 without saying anything else, I'm still getting the legacy format because, sorry, because I I set sort of my global default, and that's actually what I would recommend, right? If you want to stay on legacy for the time being and then sort of switch over to TMDL at some point. So that's that. And yeah, I mean, just a little recap, right? So this convert command is actually pretty powerful because you can go sort of in any direction, as you can see, right? You can go from a BIM file into a folder. You can go from a folder into a BIM file, right? So I can actually take my legacy 2 folder. If I specified it as my first argument, and then if basically say contoso2.bim, I don't have to say anything else because it infers by me specifying the .bim extension that that's what I want, right? So this is that was my original BIM file, and this is the one which was just generated, right? So you can go back and forth. The formats are completely lossless, right? Everything that's represented in the TMDL folder is completely equivalent to anything that's represented in a BIM file or represented in a tabular editor folder structure. Yeah, so cool. Any questions on that one?
No, I think everyone is
cool.
watching.
All right.
Amazed by this, but yeah, no, not real.
Fantastic. So that's RC3. RC4 is going to come out as soon as the next TMDL preview ships. So yeah, not long from now. I also wanted to point out, if I may, this new page I created a while ago, where I'm making a very explicit statement with respect to what's Microsoft supported and what isn't, right? Because there's actually, now that TMDL is there, there's actually a lot more which is fully supported, which is quite exciting. But it's also important that anyone using PPI tools understands that some things are still unsupported at that point, right? So basically, everything that's marked as experimental in this matrix is currently not Microsoft supported, right? So this is what this matrix is about. It's fully functional. It's available in PPI tools, but if you use, for instance, the compile command to create a PPX file from sources, you can never go to Microsoft support and complain to anything there, right? You can complain to me, but definitely not to Microsoft. So I just want to make this very explicit, right? But in terms of what is supported, right? So deploy, right? So you can deploy from a PBX file. If you're happy to put an entire binary PBX file into source control, that is supported, and that even works for Pro, right? So that's the only deployment case where Pro is possible as a target. Otherwise, it's just premium. If you want to deploy a data set from a BIM file or from a TMDL folder, that's all supported, right? And obviously, those supporting, those enterprise level declarative deployment pipelines, that's really what PPI tools is all about. Also, exporting data. If you reference a port, basically, if you have a Power BI desktop session open and you reference the port number as opposed to the PBX file, that is supported because it's basically using an interface that is officially available to external tools. And as far as deployment is concerned, thin reports, because deployments of thin reports from a folder structure rather than from a PBX file, because they internally rely on compile, right? That's why they're not Microsoft supported, but they're obviously PBI tools supported. So hopefully that helps and supports sort of decision making. I strongly expect that over time I'll be able to go back in here and actually update this and mark more things as supported. Let's leave it there, right? But that's where we are at today. Cool. So that's that. And yeah, lastly, I just wanted to mention a few events. Power BI Cruise you already mentioned, right? So that was that just happened last weekend, or actually the weekend before. There were about 60 plus people there. It was absolutely fantastic. Quite a few super excited articles on LinkedIn already. And
real long deep dive sessions. I'm very jealous, actually.
Yeah,
and
it was really
still hope
unique.
this will be repeated because
Absolutely.
it's quite special. It's not a usual conference to be like on a ferry or on a cruise and have this deep dive and very close talk to some experts.
Yeah, absolutely. So each session was 3 hours, right? There were only 3 slots, 2 on the first day and 1 on the second day. And each session was basically sort of a mini training day, right? Very unique. That's not normally what you find at a conference. So I really enjoyed that presenting because, I mean, to be honest, that's really what TMDL takes today, right? Because there's a lot of new stuff. And we were able to go into sort of lots of deep explanations of how something works and why, and really explain how everything fits together. That would never have been possible in 50 or 60 minutes. So yeah, great success. I absolutely hope that there will be a second one next year or so. The other thing I put out here is build. And I think that one is quite important to talk about because it is rather unusual for Power BI. Microsoft Build has been around for a long time, but it's actually a developer conference, right? So this is normally where sort of geeks like myself used to go to geek out on programming languages and things like that. But I am mentioning it because Build is happening in where are we now? In 3 weeks' time. And it is very relevant for Power BI, right? So I can't say much more, but anyone in the Power BI space, absolutely keep your eye on Build. If you can, get an online ticket or so, because it really is something that will be remembered. So yeah, take my word for it. And I'm actually going. I'm so excited about this. I'm going to be in Seattle for this. Yeah. And then finally, if you happen to be around in Germany, super excited to go to my old home in the Rhineland in June. So June 17 is SQL Saturday or Data Saturday. And I'm going to be presenting on Power BI tools, PBI tools, and CI/CD pipelines. If you have a look at the schedule, there's a lot going on there. And my session is going to be 3:45 p.m. Here we go. I believe the entire event is free, if I'm not mistaken. It's all community driven, and yeah, I'm super excited to go, and would be cool to see some of you there. Are you planning on going?
I'm still not sure because this weekend is not perfect for me.
Right. Okay.
But I will still try. So right now I opened the page, so maybe to see if it's how mandatory is it to register early, and maybe I can make it. I will really try to do it because it's a good stuff. And the build it's maybe also something interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a month and a half away. Build is going to be much sooner. Absolutely do watch what's going on there. If you happen to be in London, I'm going to be presenting June 22nd at the Power BI user group, also on TMDL and related things that will be around at that point.
Yeah, this is not possible this week. I'm in Munich at a convention, but SQL Saturday is more likely that I still can make it somehow. We will see. It looks very nice, and yeah.
So maybe one more thing on Tabular Editor, because I only mentioned Tabular Editor 2, right? So Tabular Editor 3 will have TMDL support. Daniel delayed it because of one particular issue that he found in Preview 1. That's related to legacy data sources. It's already been fixed, and it's coming, in the next few days. So I'm expecting the very first Tabular Editor 3 release with TMDL support, basically by next week or so. Because with that one, he's basically just waiting for the next TMDL release. So that'll be super exciting. And then what I've just shown with TE2 in terms of going in and out using TMDL format, that's going to be available in Tabular Editor 3 as well. And once again, the next preview release has had a whole bunch of bug fixes, so it will be substantially more stable for certain niche scenarios. It was really useful actually getting those inputs and feedback from the community, from people trying things out early on. I can promise you that with the next release, if you try those exact same projects, you'll have a substantially better experience.
Cool. I'm really looking forward to see what's coming then.
Yeah, so next time we speak, I'm sure there will be more new things to talk about. And just very briefly, this bit is also something I'm excited about. But again, it's going to need more explanation and and a really and an end-to-end demo as well. But just to give you a little sneak preview here, with PBI tools, you can now set OAuth data source credentials as part of deployments within certain constraints. So only if you're using service principals, because obviously in an automated deployment, you won't be able to interactively provide OAuth credentials. But if you have a client ID, client secret, basically a service principal, then that's now possible. And that opens up a whole range of very interesting deployment scenarios, which no longer require manual intervention. Previously, you would have done the initial deployment with PBI tools, then you would have gone into your workspace, set the credential, and then go back to PBI tool. That can all be fully automated now. So I'm super excited. But I want to do a full end-to-end demo on
that. Nice.
Any other questions?
Yes. Not really. Then Donald say, okay, he has some legacy data sources. So yeah, this is quite good that you shown us how to support these.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I have more like it's not really a TMDL question, but a question about enterprise solutions. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe you can give me a hint, because how do you? I think your answer will be Power BI tools, but I had some issues about how to publish a calendar in an enterprise, in, yeah, an enterprise data model.
Uh-huh.
Like, because usually the common best practice is, yeah, you use a data flow for this and import the calendar in data sets where you need it, but then you don't have all the, yeah, for example, the sorting of the columns.
Mm-hmm.
But when you extract the model as TMDL, for example, with Power BI tools, then
Mm-hmm.
it's very easy to manipulate also, like, all the model things like sorting.
Yes.
Also, I noticed this, but yeah, I think you still need like some professional tools like Power BI tools, or yeah, other API driven tools to publish this. If you, for example, have a new column in a calendar and have to publish it to 50 reports and at once, so how would you do it?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, that's precisely what Tinder was designed for, right? Because,
Mm,
you know, it's not just your M query, it's not just fetching the data, it's actually a lot of tabular metadata that you need, right?
yeah.
Even here, right, you can see that's marked as a date table, which is actually data category on the
Mm,
table object. Um, and then you've got various hidden columns, and you've got sort by columns, right, and all of that. So this entire file, right, one text file, pretty much defines everything you need for your data table, right? It defines where the data is coming from, which transforms
mm,
are performed during load, and what is the metadata for every single column. So you can really think about this as a copy paste, right? You basically
mm,
maintain your standard date table definition in a central location, and whenever you want to use it in another model, you just copy it in there, and you've got it, right? Theoretically, if you want to be really sophisticated, you could actually create a link, right? So in Git, for instance, you can use
mm,
submodules, which allow you to basically link in files from other repositories. So that way you could completely um, connect everything without duplicating those files. But that's a bit more involved and definitely quite advanced. But just the ability to basically have everything that's related to this table in one file and being able to read and edit that, right? That's something we've never had
mm,
before. So
yeah.
obviously the one other thing that's also needed are
Yeah, yeah.
relationships, right? But as you can see, unless you've got 100 of those, it should be fairly straightforward to handle those, right? I mean,
Mm,
and that's a
yeah.
one-off, which you could potentially also just do in desktop, right? So you bring your date table in, then you open modeling view in desktop, and pretty much just sort of
Yeah.
connect the right columns there.
Okay, then, but still, okay. We can also appreciation from Andrea for this, because yeah, this is the way to deploy to many destinations. I was like also expecting this answer, but it's still nice to, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
listen to some with real lots of experience in enterprise.
And also the same, by the way, the same applies to calculation groups, right? So I'm just looking at time intelligence here. That happens to be a calculation group table, right? And usually, as you can see, you actually have very reusable logic in those, right? So those 4 calculation items here, current year, quarter to date, year to date, and same period last year, that is completely generic, right? As long as you've got that date reference, that would actually work in any model, right? So same thing, right? You could basically take that as a template and just copy paste it whenever you start a new project without having to figure out how to recreate exactly the same setup.
Yes.
And down here, that's standard, right? So each calculation group has exactly 2 columns, and you can name them whatever you want, but the source column reference is predefined. You have to have an int column that's linked to ordinal, and you have to have a string column that's linked to name, and then you're good, right? So that's it. So that's all completely generic, basically.
Yeah, so it's not no code or low code, but it's definitely the most efficient solution to distribute some reusable dimensions.
And what I can absolutely imagine and what I'm in fact expecting is, once TMDL is more established and integrated in more tools, I'm pretty sure smart people will figure out sort of more high-level tools that take advantage of those capabilities, right? And think and maybe provide sort of a model templating system that does exactly what I just described, right? Basically, allow you to maintain a template of model snippets or table definitions as a central repository, which you then just copy paste into other models, right? That's totally conceivable and would actually be quite straightforward from a technical point of view. So it's going to be, I mean, really, we are in very early days as far as TMDL is concerned, right? It's going to be very exciting to see what people come up with down the line.
Yeah, I'm also posted on LinkedIn that I'm waiting for some good editor for Power Query and M code, because Power BI Desktop is not really the convenient way to write complex M code, and tabular editor also not. And I think this is a start, because it's very readable also for humans, and version control is great, and TMDL, and all we need is just maybe the extension for VS Code will do it.
Yep, that's coming. But also in terms of M and Power Query, there already is a Microsoft extension for Power Query. So if you're not aware,
But then you still have to copy paste, right? It's
yes,
not integrated in anything.
yes. So it's this one, which is relatively new and well supported, right? As you can see, I've got that one installed and enabled, and it allows you to basically open any M file, which obviously I've got in here as an example, right? So let's take this one. And look at this, right? So now down here it says Power Query formula language, because since I have that extension installed, VS Code is able to detect what the .m extension means, and it then basically points it to the right extension, and that's why I get all of this, which do I have? Yeah, there we go. Look at that. So that actually gives me IntelliSense, right? So it because it understands what functions are available, right? So ultimately, we want to make a similar experience available for TMDL. Obviously, it's just a bit more work necessary.
Nice. Okay. Thanks for that. Really, another question appeared from Vijay. He is asking about how pro users can use TMDL. I think TMDL itself is not limited to premium, but many of the publishing features are.
Not today, but that may change later in the year.
Yeah, if you dare to use the non-supported functions, you can still do a lot as a pro, because it's still a good way to use source control and then compile the
Yeah,
files and publish them. It's possible, it's not supported. So, okay.
yeah. I mean,
Uh,
frankly, things are quite limited as far as Power BI Pro is concerned, right? But for instance, you can even here, right? Even in Tabular Editor, you can. So if I had Power BI Desktop running, right, you can open a new session from a local instance, and you could then still save to folder using TMDL format from something that otherwise exists in PPX. But yeah, as you said, right, if you want automated deployments and all the rest of it, it's got to be premium, unfortunately, or PPU, premium per user. But stay tuned. Then things may change.
Okay. And also a big thank you from Philip for all your contribution, Matthias. I think lots of people would agree on this. Nothing more to say. Just thank you, and yeah. If you have any last words, we see it. So otherwise, we can see you at the upcoming events you talked about, or of course, we will try to do the next talk in June to present all the cool stuff we're expecting till then.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, again, right. Expect a TMDL update in the next few days. Obviously, that will be announced. Expect Tabular Editor 3. Expect an update for Tabular Editor 2 and PPI tools. And if you can, watch what build will give us.
Nice. I registered for build. It was quite easy, just a few clicks. I did it right now. Yeah, online. I cannot go to Seattle, but I still hope to catch some interesting stuff.
Fantastic. Awesome.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. And
Looking forward to
maybe meet
next time,
again.
because
Yeah.
we'll have more new stuff to talk about.
Yes, that was a lots of new stuff. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.